All right, let's dive in. We're going back in time today, back to the early 20th century.
Oh, yeah.
A world on the edge of some huge EE changes, you know?
Absolutely.
And today, we're going to really explore how events that seem worlds apart, literally thousands of miles apart, can actually be super connected. So we're deep diving into the chaos of World War I, India's fight for independence, and the Russian Revolution, all through some excerpts from a pretty amazing historical text.
Okay, fascinating.
Yeah, should be interesting.
It's incredible, when you think about it, how these events really acted as catalysts for one another.
Oh, yeah.
World War I, for instance, wasn't just some European conflict.
Right.
It was a global war.
Yeah.
The first of its kind, really.
Right.
And, it left millions dead, millions displaced. The impact, it resonated far beyond those battlefields of Europe.
Yeah, you get lost in the numbers sometimes.
Right.
But the sheer scale of it, it's hard to even grasp.
It is.
And then you think about how the war was actually fought, like this crazy clash of old tactics with brand new modern weaponry. Trench warfare, for example, that was brutal.
Precisely, yeah.
A brutal reality for millions.
Staggering.
Just staggering.
But even within this bleak landscape, there were moments of humanity.
Oh, yeah.
Like the Christmas truce of 1914.
Right.
Where soldiers on both sides, they just laid down their arms, sang carols together.
Really?
They even played football together.
Wow.
It was a tiny glimpse, really, into the power of, shared humanity in the midst of all that conflict.
It's a powerful story.
That is.
But it also makes you wonder, why couldn't that spirit of peace, why couldn't that prevail,
Right.
Why did the war have to keep going?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a question historians are still grappling with, really.
Yeah.
The war raged on, though, eventually ending with that Treaty of Versailles, which, while it was intended to establish peace, it might have actually laid the groundwork for future conflicts, unintentionally.
Really?
Yeah, you see, the treaties, its punitive measures, particularly against Germany, they fueled this resentment.
Oh, I see.
And economic instability.
Oh, okay.
That created this environment where extremist ideologies could thrive.
Wow.
And that ultimately contributed to the rise of Nazism.
Right.
And then, the outbreak of World War II.
So it's like, instead of, resolving tensions, the treaty actually made them worse.
In a way, yeah.
Setting the stage for another global conflict. But while Europe was trying to rebuild, another struggle was unfolding, right? India's fight for freedom from British rule.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
India, under British colonial rule at the time, was yearning for independence.
Yeah.
And, at the heart of this struggle was Mohandas Gandhi.
Right, Gandhi.
And his philosophy of satyagraha, which translates to soul force.
Yeah.
It's a form of nonviolent resistance.
It's so fascinating, his philosophy.
It is.
It wasn't just passive resistance, It was this strategic and multifaceted approach. Didn't he kind of hone these tactics earlier in his career?
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Gandhi's early work in South Africa, fighting those discriminatory laws.
Right.
It served as a blueprint for India's independence movement.
Okay.
Satyagraha.
Yeah.
It involved a whole range of nonviolent tactics like boycotts of British goods, peaceful protests, acts of civil disobedience.
Got it.
All aimed at exposing the injustices of colonial rule.
Yeah.
And appealing to the moral conscience of the oppressors.
Right.
And his success in South Africa showed the world that potential power of peaceful resistance.
And then there was that tragic event, the Amritsar massacre.
Oh, yes.
A peaceful gathering just met with shocking violence.
It was a turning point, really. Fueled the fire for independence.
Right.
But at a terrible, terrible cost.
Yeah.
And it highlighted the complexities and often the painful path to freedom.
It's a stark reminder.
It is.
That the pursuit of liberty often comes with sacrifice.
Yeah.
And even when independence was achieved, it wasn't without its own set of challenges.
Of course.
The partition of India and the creation of Pakistan, they had lasting consequences.
Indeed they did.
Yeah.
Freedom came at a price a price that we still see resonating today.
Right.
And sadly, Gandhi's own story ended tragically with his assassination.
Right.
A stark reminder that even in moments of victory, darkness can prevail.
Yeah, it's tough.
It is.
But while these events were unfolding in Europe and Asia, another dramatic transformation was taking place in Russia.
Yes.
One that would have, profound implications for the world.
For everyone, yeah.
It's easy to forget that Russia back then was this vast empire.
It was.
Lagging behind in industrialization.
Yeah.
And ruled by, a seemingly unyielding czar.
And this vast empire, it was about to face a reckoning.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The seeds of discontent had been sown long before World War I.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
With events like Bloody Sunday in 1905.
Right.
Where unarmed protesters were met with gunfire.
Wow.
It shattered that illusion of a benevolent ruler.
Bloody Sunday must have been a turning point for a lot of Russians.
I think so.
Like a realization that change wouldn't come peacefully. And then World War I, that just added further strain on an already fragile system.
Absolutely. Russia's struggles on the battlefield exposed the weaknesses of the Tsarist regime. And it exacerbated all those social and economic tensions. Right. People were tired.
Yeah.
Tired of war, tired of poverty.
Of oppression.
Of oppression, exactly.
Yeah.
And into this tumultuous landscape stepped Vladimir Lenin, secretly transported back to Russia by Germany.
Oh, wow.
It was a powerful message.
What was that?
Peace, land, and bread.
Peace, land, and bread.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, and it resonated deeply.
I bet.
With the population desperate for change.
So it was a gamble that paid off, Lenin's return?
I think so.
Yeah.
It wasn't just his words, though.
Really?
You know? It was his ideology.
Yeah, he brought with him the ideas of the Bolsheviks.
The Bolsheviks, yes, led by Lenin, were this radical socialist faction.
Okay.
And they believed in a violent overthrow of the existing order.
Wow.
And the establishment of a communist state.
Okay.
And their ideology, you combine that with Lenin's strategic brilliance and that growing discontent among the people.
Right.
Well, you had a potent force for revolution.
And that force led to, not one, but two revolutions in 1917.
That's right.
The first one toppled the Tsar,
yes.
And the second brought Lenin's Bolsheviks to power.
It was a whirlwind.
A whirlwind of change
yes.
that reshaped Russia's destiny.
The pace of change was astonishing.
Yeah.
Lenin, a pragmatist at heart, immediately set about consolidating power and negotiating a peace treaty with Germany.
Okay.
The Treaty of Brest-Litovsk.
Brest-Litovsk.
Yeah, though controversial.
Why is that?
Well, for ceding large swaths of territory.
I see.
But it highlighted Lenin's willingness to make those difficult choices to secure Russia's future.
He was a master strategist.
Yeah, you could say that.
Willing to make those short-term sacrifices for long-term gains. But securing that future, that wouldn't be easy, would it?
No, it wouldn't.
The Russian Civil War?
Yes.
That was a brutal conflict.
It was a tragic chapter.
It was.
But it solidified Bolshevik control, and it laid the foundation for the Soviet Union.
Right.
A new power on the world stage.
Yeah.
With a legacy that, we're still debating it today.
So we're seeing a world in flux, right?
Right.
A global war-shattering empires. A fight for independence fueled by a philosophy of nonviolent resistance and a revolution that reshaped a nation's destiny.
Absolutely.
It's fascinating how these events, they're all connected, each one influencing the course of the others.
Like a chain reaction almost.
Yeah, exactly.
A ripple effect.
But how did World War I, this catalyst for so much change, how did it actually come to an end?
Oh, it had been dragging on for years by then.
Yeah.
Both sides were just exhausted.
Right, totally.
And then the Americans entered the fray.
Oh, yeah.
The U.S. joining the war.
That was a pivotal moment, 1917.
It's huge.
Fresh troops, resources, renewed purpose.
Totally.
It really tipped the scales in favor of the Allies. It was a final push that Germany just couldn't withstand.
It's wild how, the New World helped bring an end to the Old World's conflict in a way.
Right.
Yeah, it's a reminder that history is full of those unexpected twists.
It is.
But even with the war over.
Yeah. The world was, it was irrevocably changed.
Absolutely.
We've been talking a lot about Europe and Asia, America, but I'm curious about what was happening in Africa during this time.
That's a crucial part of the story.
Yeah.
One that often gets overlooked, unfortunately.
Right.
While the main fighting was happening in Europe,
yeah,
the war had a profound impact on Africa as well.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. You see, European powers were vying for colonial dominance.
Right.
And they exploited African resources and manpower to fuel their war efforts.
So Africa became another battleground in a war that wasn't even theirs.
Sadly, yes.
Wow.
British and French forces attacked German colonies.
Oh, okay.
Leading to battles in places like Cameroon, Togo, and in East Africa.
Yeah.
There was this legendary German general, Paul von Lettow-Vorbeck.
Okay.
Who led a campaign that tied up Allied resources for years.
Wait, a German general?
Yeah.
Leading a successful campaign in Africa? That's not something you hear every day.
It's an incredible story.
It is?
Lettow-Vorbeck, he was a master of guerrilla warfare.
Wow.
He used his knowledge of the terrain and his small but determined force to outmaneuver his opponents.
So smart.
Yeah, he remained undefeated until the very end of the war.
Wow, that's remarkable.
It is.
But I imagine all of this fighting had a devastating impact on the African people caught in the crossfire.
Absolutely. Villages were destroyed, food supplies confiscated.
Oh, no.
Countless Africans were forced to serve as porters for the European armies.
Oh, God.
Many died from disease, from starvation, or just overwork.
That's awful.
It was a brutal chapter in colonial history.
Yeah, it's hard to hear about.
It is.
And I imagine that this experience it must have fueled so much resentment toward colonial rule.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Many Africans fought bravely for their colonial overlords, hoping that their sacrifices would lead to greater rights,
To recognition.
To recognition, yeah.
Yeah.
But after the war, those hopes were dashed.
Wow.
They were considered equals on the battlefield, but
treated as second-class citizens?
Exactly.
Go.
It's no surprise that this fueled those nationalist movements across the continent.
Right, it makes sense.
Yeah, it's a tragic cycle.
It is.
War breeds more conflict, and the quest for freedom is often met with more oppression.
And speaking of, we were talking about Lenin earlier.
Right.
He was a revolutionary.
He was.
But he also created a one-party state.
He did.
With the Communist Party firmly in control.
It's the paradox of Lenin, isn't it?
It really is.
He believed that a strong centralized government was necessary to guide Russia toward true communism.
Right. Okay.
It wasn't exactly the workers' paradise that Marx had envisioned.
No.
But it was a dramatic departure.
It was.
From that Tsarist regime.
Right. It set the stage for the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
Which, would become a major player on the world stage for decades to come.
Okay. Before we wrap up this deep dive, I have to ask, how did World War I actually end?
Okay.
I know Germany surrendered.
He did.
But what led to that final breaking point?
Well, the war had been dragging on for years.
Yeah.
And both sides were just exhausted.
Right.
Germany was facing a blockade that was crippling its economy, and its troops were demoralized.
Yeah.
The country was on the verge of collapse.
So Germany was like teetering on the brink, right?
Yeah, they were in a really bad spot.
And then, bam, the U.S. enters the war.
Exactly.
It seems like that was the final straw for them.
Yeah, I think so.
The U.S. joining in 1917?
It tipped the balance.
Totally.
Fresh troops, resources, a surge of morale for the Allies.
Yeah, Germany couldn't keep up.
They just couldn't withstand that final push, no.
It's crazy how, everything's connected.
I know, right? World War I, India fighting for independence, the Russian Revolution.
It's mind-boggling.
They're not just isolated things.
No, not at all.
It's like this web, of global forces and consequences.
Yeah, exactly. History isn't just a bunch of random facts and dates.
Right.
It's a tapestry woven with threads of cause and effect.
It's like a chain reaction almost.
It is. It's choices made and consequences faced.
And the decisions and actions taken during this crazy period,
they reverberated across the globe.
They did.
They shaped the world we live in today.
It's a powerful thought.
It is.
It makes you realize that we're all part of this grand narrative.
We are.
Shaped by the past, whether we realize it or not.
Exactly. And understanding these historical forces, that can help us make sense of the present.
Right.
And and navigate the future.
Because it gives us like this deeper understanding of the challenges we face.
Absolutely.
And the opportunities too.
It does.
So it seems like one of the big takeaways here is that while these major historical events have ended their legacies, well, they're still shaping our world today.
Oh, absolutely. The echoes of these revolutions.
Right.
The struggles for independence, the rise and fall of empires.
They still resonate.
They do. They resonate today.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into this world in crisis, it's striking how interconnected everything is. It's like one event setting off another.
A chain reaction, yeah.
And those ripples, they cross continents, they cross generations.
And that's a key takeaway for you, listener.
It is.
History isn't just, a list of names and dates.
No.
It's a living, breathing narrative.
Right.
Full of choices, consequences, and those interconnected events.
It's like history is whispering to us,
In a way, yeah.
Urging us to learn from the past, to grapple with its complexities.
And to use that knowledge.
Yeah.
To build a better future.
That's the power of history, right?
It's not just about memorizing facts.
Right.
It's about understanding those forces that shape our world.
The choices that were made.
The consequences that followed.
Yeah, and using that knowledge.
To become more informed.
Yeah.
More engaged, more empowered.
As citizens.
As citizens, exactly.
So as we sign off on this episode, I'm left with this sense of awe at the interconnectedness of it all.
I understand.
And a sense of responsibility for the choices we make today.
History isn't just a spectator sport.
No.
We are all participants.
We are.
Whether we realize it or not.
Yeah.
So let's strive to be active, informed, engaged participants, shaping the narrative of our time.
And leaving a legacy we can be proud of.
Exactly.
That's a perfect note to end on.
It is.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone.
Thanks for listening.
Until next time.
See you then.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning.